From Mark 8:27 through 33. Jesus went out with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi. And on the road he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" They answered him, "John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others one of the prophets." "But you," he asked them, "who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Messiah."
Thank you, Paul. Am I on? Okay, all right, very good. This is a hinge story in the book of Mark. This story this morning is going to take us through a range of emotions: excitement at the insight that Peter has just shown, and then soon it's going to turn in conviction and possibly offense, then pain, then amazement, and finally, hopefully, Lord willing, to comfort. This is the book of Mark. One thing to another, bam, bam. Now, thus far, the book of Mark has shown us Jesus in action. And he's left us with this question: who is this guy? That is the question. Who is he? We've seen him touch lepers and cleanse them. We've seen him cast out demons individually and in bulk. He cast them out in bulk. Because remember Legion? Did anybody else read that? I thought that was a pretty good line. I'm kind of disappointed. It's the Costco demon. Come on. It's just all at once. Bam. Let's cut through those savings. We've seen him tell the storm to be quiet and have the storm obey. We've seen him feed thousands of people from a single child's lunchbox. We've seen him pour out his power over sickness, over nature, over evil spirits. Who is this guy? That's the question the disciples themselves have been asking, especially after that near-death experience on the Sea of Galilee. The wind suddenly stops. They look around and they see Jesus just curled up and going back to sleep. Like, who is this? What's going on? Who is this guy? And finally, Jesus poses the question to them directly. It happens in what we just read. Who are you? They answer, some say you're John the Baptist, which is really a strange theory. John the Baptist has only recently been executed by Herod. I don't know how that form of reincarnation works, but whatever. Strange theory. Some say you're John the Baptist. Herod himself thought he was John the Baptist. A really interesting worldview going on. Others thought he was Elijah, the Old Testament prophet who had been dead for 8.5 centuries. I don't know. They say all kinds of things, they answer. And Jesus is like, yeah, but what about you? I don't care about the rumors. What about you? And Peter says, you are the Messiah. Matthew records a longer answer that Jesus responds to him. He says, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." He praises Peter for getting the answer. Excellent, Peter, good job. I really am the Christ. I really am the Messiah. I am the anointed one. I am the one who will be king. I'm the one you've been waiting for centuries, Peter. Now, you would expect Jesus to add something like, now go tell everybody. But as we've seen through the book of Mark, instead, Jesus goes, shh. He strictly warns them, verse 30, not to tell no one about him. Now, why wouldn't he want everyone to know? That's interesting. So many reasons why at different places he seems to be pulling the reins back on the word getting out. But I'm going to propose this. It's going to start in verse 31 here. Then he began to teach them that it was necessary for the Son of Man to suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, chief priests, and scribes, be killed, and rise again after 3 days. If that view got out right now, these guys alone are not going to be able to handle this. In fact, when Jesus says it, just imagine all the air getting sucked out of the room. You are the Christ. Yes, I am. Blessed are you. And the Son of Man's going to suffer and die. It's complete whiplash. It's a record scratch kind of moment. It's a, what does this mean? This makes no sense kind of moment. Why in the world would Jesus say this? His words are jarring. The late Tim Keller said this. He said it was the first time anyone had connected the idea of suffering with the concept of the Messiah. That was simply not in their heads. That did not make sense. The Messiah was not someone who was coming to suffer. That was simply not in their imagination at all. He was there to conquer. Everybody knows that. It was so obvious. The Messiah was coming to conquer his enemies. Boom. Everyone knows. This doesn't make any sense. Nor does the rising after 3 days thing. Jesus dying? What, the Messiah died? No. Jesus, no. The Messiah is supposed to be like David. He's supposed to pull out the sword and charge in at Rome. That's what he's supposed to do. You're supposed to put the beat down on your enemies, not have your enemies put the beat down on you. This does not make sense. Jesus openly spoke about this, verse 32. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. Okay, that word rebuke, by the way, it's a harsh word. It's the same word that Jesus uses with the demons. Jesus openly rebuked the demons. The student is standing up and saying, you're wrong. No, you cannot say this. No, Jesus, you can't, I forbid it. Peter, forbid it. This rabbi, no. You know what? I think he's a little bit embarrassed by this. I want to add something to the mix here, okay? This is something we don't talk about that often here because it's just so culturally different. But I think there was another layer of history that they were dealing with on the forefront of their minds, and that's this. There had been many false messiahs already who had come to a horrible end. And I think this is very present in their minds. There were unsuccessful revolts against Rome by people who were hailed as prophets and as religious/political figures, and there were catastrophic results. Some of them were even mentioned in the book of Acts by the Rabbi Gamaliel. Here's one example. There was this guy, and we just sort of skim over it because it's a bunch of weird history that he just kind of mentions, but there was a guy named Judas of Galilee. Judas of Galilee, just about 5 years or so before Jesus was born, he was this man in the region of Galilee who took his friend Sadduq, who was a Pharisee, and they decided to join forces and confront Rome. They were going to take Rome down, which was an absurd idea, let me tell you. Rome was the mightiest nation the world had ever seen, but they wanted to take them down. And there was already a very anti-Roman sentiment, especially regarding taxes throughout Israel. So they began to travel around and say, it's time, we're going to take up arms, and we are going to revolt against Rome, and we're going to win. But it will only work if everyone joins together, because God will only help us if we're all joined together, and then he will do it. And so a lot of people joined together, and he's a shadowy figure. We don't know too much about him. We only know from the historian Josephus, but his rebellion was squashed very, very quickly, and he was killed. But there were more. His death inspired an entire new sect of people. We talk about Pharisees, we talk about Sadducees. Well, out of his death arose a new group called the Zealots. And the Zealots said, we are going to take up the sword against Rome, and that's what we're going to do. And they were all inspired by Judas the Galilean. So there were others then who tried the same kind of thing. One was another guy mentioned in Acts called Thaddeus. Thaddeus claimed to be a radical prophet. He gained hundreds of followers, and he decided he was going to go to the Jordan River and cross the Jordan with all of his followers in a very symbolic act of crossing the Jordan like Joshua before the conquest of Canaan. This was going to be the beginning of the conquest of the Romans. And the Romans found out about it, and they met that group at the Jordan River with 400 cavalry, and they just laid waste to these guys. They killed Thaddeus and put his head on a pike. And this kind of thing happened over and over again. Pontius Pilate's career, who obviously we know of from later in Mark. Pontius Pilate was always squashing rebellions because there were always rebellions. And there were, false messiahs and people being appointed. Oh, this is the next guy. And he would come in and he would squash them with more cruelty than they came in with. And it was awful. And when they were defeated, it again often ended with execution, sometimes crucifixions. Here's what Josephus, again the historian, says, looking back on this awful series. Just take in these words. He says, all sorts of misfortunes also sprang from these men. And the nation was infected with this doctrine to an incredible degree. One violent war came upon us after another, and we lost our friends. A famine also came upon us and reduced us to the last degree of despair, as did also the taking and demolishing of cities. Nay, the sedition at last increased so high that the very temple of God was burnt down by the enemy's fire. And that will happen several decades later. It was horrible. So let's go back to Peter, dealing with Jesus' prediction that he's going to suffer at the hands of his leaders and die. I think that prediction to Peter sounded like these stories. I think to him, he's like, so wait a minute, are you saying we're going to end up just like Thaddeus's followers? Like you're going to go and we're going to attack, but Rome's going to overwhelm us and then we're going to end up, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be humiliated. I didn't sign up for this. If you're the Messiah, your story cannot end with yet another arrest and a torture session. It can't end with executions on crosses for you and for all of us. That's happened too many times. That's not you. No, I forbid it, Jesus. I forbid it. That's not why we signed up. We're going to win. We're going to win. How did Jesus respond? Verse 33. Turning around and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You're not thinking about God's concerns, but human concerns." Peter was setting his mind on man's agendas, not just like general humanities agendas, but on this particular agenda. This agenda of the Messiah taking the sword and being this political religious figure. That was not God's concern. That was Peter's concern. Peter's strategy was different than what Jesus was presenting. He will be the Messiah, but not like that. Not like that. And now he explains. He keeps going, okay? Connect all of these parts of this dialogue together. Verse 34, calling the crowd along with the disciples, he said to them, "If anyone wants to follow after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life because of me and the gospel will save it." This is a happy sermon, isn't it? Not even just for me, from Jesus. You got all these people that are like, "Oh, this is so awesome, the Messiah, we're going to follow him. Anyone wants to follow me, be ready to take up your cross." What? For us, we have crosses on our necklaces. We have crosses everywhere. It's a beautiful thing to represent who Jesus is. For them, cross is not beautiful. The cross is the most horrible device of torture that Rome came up with. They're going to lift somebody in the air. They're going to pound holes in them. And they're going to let them suffer not only an utter abject pain, but humiliation. This was designed to humiliate traitors and to let them have slow, excruciating deaths. In fact, the word excruciating means as if on a cross. Excruciating. That's what it actually means. And he says, take up your cross. Hey, take up your cross. Can you see why they were a little offended? I think a lot of people left the church that day. I don't like what you're saying, Jesus. If you want to follow Jesus, he says, you have to deny yourself, lay down your agenda, and take up your cross. Turning to Jesus requires giving all of that up. Peter is trying to save his own life here. And Jesus says, Well, you got to lay your life down if you want to save it. Lay your life down for the sake of the gospel, for the sake of the good news. Lay it down. Verse 36, for what does it benefit someone to gain the whole world and yet lose his life? What can anyone give in exchange for his life? For whoever is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will also be ashamed of him when he comes in the glory of his Father with holy angels. I think he's talking directly to Peter in that part. Because I think Peter is a little bit ashamed of him in this moment. I think Peter's trying to shush him because he's like, please don't say that out loud. No, don't say that out loud. You've got to be wrong somehow, but please, even if you aren't, don't say that out loud. That's not the kind of Messiah that we're all here for. Hello. We see you doing all these miracles, and it was just kind of in our minds that you were going to use those miracles in this project we have to restore Israel and to throw off Rome. Please don't talk this way, Jesus says. Do not be ashamed of me. Take up your cross. Give up your life. Lay it down. Lay down your desires, your agendas, your hopes to crush your enemies. Lay it down. Jesus says, that's not me. Whoever claims to be of Jesus and talks about crushing their enemy, that they're not of Jesus. Are you hearing me? I'm taking this now into the modern day. This was true back then, and it's true today. Because all of these same ideas, all of these same desires, all of the same attitudes and hatreds of enemies is still present today. And they were like, no, we want to destroy our enemies. And today, you have people also, we want to destroy our enemies. Now, maybe it's not quite all the time with that sort of violence, but you still have that same sort of hatred. And Jesus is like, no, that's not me. That's simply not allowed. You cannot follow me and hate your enemy. You can't follow me and hate your enemy. You can't follow Jesus while looking absolutely nothing like him. Do you see what I'm saying? The whole point of a disciple was to become like the rabbi. And our rabbi was peaceful and full of grace, even for those who hated him. In order to be a follower of Jesus, that means, like the disciples, we follow and we seek to become as he was. We seek to act like him and do what he does. And that excludes hatred of your enemy. Now, that's difficult. That's immensely difficult. In fact, it's almost offensive. How many of you guys are feeling a little bit offended right now? Maybe you don't have to raise your hand. In fact, yeah, well, maybe, okay. Because then I'm going to have like a whole bunch of meetings after this meeting. So I'm going to tell you, I'm stepping on my own toes right now. I'm stepping on my own toes. Because there have been people, just like in your life, there have been people who have deeply wounded me. And it's hard to get over that. I have people in my life who have done some very unjust things. And the idea of continuing to love, the idea of continuing to extend grace to them is painful. Because I'm thinking, it's not right. Like there's things here that are not right. And Jesus says, yeah, lay down your life for them. And I feel this. I'm going to tell you, I was thinking a lot about this morning. I was thinking about going back in my life and thinking, there's a couple people who have hurt me so deeply, and it wasn't something they did to me, it was something that they did to my parents. And it hurts me so deeply when I think about this. And I've never said anything to them about it. But I kind of wonder, like, would I be able to, or would that pain and that anger well up in me to the point where but Jesus says, lay your life down for them. And I don't like that. I don't like it. But I don't get the option of not doing it if I follow Jesus. It's not always fun to be a follower of Jesus, isn't it? You have to take the option of revenge off the table. That's not on the table for us. Are you with me? Like, it's not on the table. Like, well, but this time they just... No, it's not on the table. It's hard. Like, it hits me here. Laying down your life for your enemies. But this was Jesus' message all throughout his ministry. to love those who don't love you. And he demonstrated that when he finally goes to the cross and he's praying for the people who are pounding nails into his body. He's praying for their forgiveness. This is offensive to me. And I am concerned. I am concerned about the cultural climate in this day and age because there are a lot of people who claim to follow Jesus and are yelling like this, like they talk about the Messiah, but I'm worried that their Messiah is Judas of Galilee or Thaddeus. Because I see nothing of Jesus' love in them. I see the desire for revenge. And I will tell you what I told you a couple of weeks ago. They are not your rabbi. Those are not your rabbis. I don't care if they call themselves Christian. If they're crying out for vengeance on their enemies in one way or another, they are not your rabbi. And you can hear them and nod and go, well, I think you're wrong, but please do not let their voices fill your skull. That is poison. That is poison. It's the opposite of the way of Jesus. So Jesus tells them that he's the Messiah, but that he is a suffering Messiah. A suffering Messiah. And in suffering, he will lay his life down to save the world. Who wants to join that kind of movement? Peter is shell-shocked. He's just identified who Jesus is. He spoke all these words and now he's shell-shocked. But watch what happens next. Jesus says a very strange thing. There's this weird chapter separation from chapter 8 to chapter 9, especially if you have chapter headings in your book. You're like, how does this fit here? But verse 1 of chapter 9 says this. He says, truly I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God come in power. Now, people have puzzled over this, like, what are you talking about here? How does this relate at all to what you've just said? People have thought, well, maybe, okay, it certainly can't mean that Jesus was coming back in that first, in that first century. He did not. Well, does it mean Pentecost? There's all different theories on this. I think it has to do with what's going to happen next. Watch this. People have puzzled over this, but to me, it's right here. Lincoln, can you put up that painting by Mike Moyers? Look at this painting for a second. I'm going to read this. Just stay on this painting. I'm going to read to you what happens. After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John and led them to a high mountain by themselves to be alone. He was transfigured in front of them, and his clothes became dazzling, extremely white, as no launderer on earth could whiten them. Elijah appeared next to them with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, Rabbi, it's good for us to be here. Let's set up 3 shelters, one for you and one for Moses and one for Elijah, because he did not know what to say, since they were terrified. A cloud appeared, overshadowing them, and a voice came from the cloud. This is my beloved Son. Listen to him. You know what I love about this, you guys? I love that Jesus let Peter see it. Because Peter knew Jesus was the Messiah, right? And so surely he must be great, right? Like he had this in his mind. He must be great. He's the king. If he's the son of the living God, he must be great, right? So Jesus, by letting him see his power, says, you know what, Peter, you are right. I am great. I am immensely powerful, more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Ain't nothing going to be as white as this cloak. That Clorox bleach. Nothing is going to shine like this with this much radiance. I am the King of heaven, Peter, and I will let you see it. And one day, you guys, one day, we'll all see it. But see, here's the thing. One of the great mistakes I think the church has made throughout history has been mistaking Jesus' first coming for his second coming. I think it's been one of the great mistakes. He came the first time in anonymity. He came in human disguise. He came in weakness. But he was the perfect picture of the love of the Father. He came to lay his life down, this Lamb of God, to take away the sins of the world. That means our sins. That means my sins. That means your sins. That means the sins of all of our enemies. That's what he came to do the first time. And when he comes again, he will come in glory. And at that time, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. There's going to be no doubt about it, because you will see him shining. All will see that day. All will see how great is our God. And we wait for that day. But until that day, we follow the example of his first coming. We show the world Christ's glory by acting like him, or, as Amber Riggs often says, by imaging him. Imaging Jesus. To where when somebody looks at us, they see exactly what Jesus was like. That is what we do until he comes again. We follow his example. Our job is not to make every knee bow and every tongue confess. Do you hear me, friends? That is not your job, to make every knee bow and every tongue confess. You are unable, and if you try, you will royally mess people up. In fact, people have done this in history. The Emperor Constantine kind of did this in the 4th century. There were a whole bunch of kings and popes who did it in the Middle Ages. We will make people bow the knee. It's not our job. When Jesus comes back, everyone will see and they will bow the knee because they will not be able to deny it. Until then, we image Jesus. We follow in his footsteps. We wait for that return. We love our neighbors like Jesus until it hurts. And then when it hurts, we love a little bit more. We are followers, not of a false Messiah who tries to implement glory, but of a humble Messiah who gives it away for free. This picture up here, let me say this, friends. I think Peter would have, in addition to being freaked out by it, anybody relate with him babbling too? Like, can we just, we can make some shelters and I can make some lemon bars maybe or something? I could make some coffee. What do you guys take? I think he's all of us in that moment. He doesn't know what to do. I think in addition to that amazement and that shock, I think Peter was deeply comforted by this. In fact, in his letter, many decades later, he will say, we were eyewitnesses to his majesty. And this is what he's talking about. They saw Jesus in his full glory and the pronouncement of the Father, this is my son. You guys, in other words, he peeked behind the curtain. And for us, that means there's something behind this curtain of pain that we're all in. In the midst of all of Peter's brokenness and uncertainty about the future of his ragtag band of disciples, despite all the violence and the threats and fears and everything else, he saw the glory of God. He saw what they were in store for. And this morning, again, as I was standing in the back, I was looking at so many of you guys, and I know some of you guys are going through some deep pain. Deep pain. And I know some of you guys are celebrating unbelievable victories. Incredible victories. I see people mourning, and then I see people celebrating a daughter whose cancer journey is coming to an end. I see people who are in the midst of life-altering breaks of relationship. And then I see that my son posted another blog post and is crushing it. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah, you should follow his blog, by the way, on Facebook. My Words at Last. He's crushing it. Sorry, Jack, I didn't ask if I'd say that, but it's promotion, buddy. Do you see what I'm saying? There is beauty and there is pain together. All of these things are here, and I see these people throwing up their hands saying how great is our God in the midst of all of this. And you know what we're doing when we do that? We are holding on and we're saying, I believe you are good. I believe there is brightness behind that curtain. That curtain's really, really thick right now, but there's brightness behind it, and there is power behind it, and there's glory behind it, and one day we're going to see all of it. I don't see it yet, because we're not there yet, because you haven't returned. He came the first time, but he's going to come again in all of his glory, and that means everything's going to change. That means it's going to be all joy. Revelation 21, 3-5 says this, Then I heard a loud voice from the throne. Look, God's dwelling is with humanity, and he will live with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them, and will be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Grief, crying, and pain will be no more, because the previous things have passed away. Then the one seated on the throne said, Look, I am making all things new. That is our promise. We serve a Messiah who laid his life down in pain and agony and humiliation, and will come again in absolute glory, and will bring with him a brightness that we cannot imagine, and a joy that we can only dream of. But we can get little tastes of, because we see people having breakthrough. We get little tastes of it, you know. That's the joy. When we hold on to that. When I read one of that dude's posts, when I read, my heart's like, whoo, that's a little taste. That's a little taste of the restoration day that's coming. That's a little taste. When I see Lenora with a long, full, thick head of hair, that's a taste of glory, you guys. It's a beautiful taste of glory. And more will come. More will come. Until that day we lay our lives down in the middle of the pain. And we continue to love. In the middle of the pain, in the middle of the anger, in the middle of the uncertainty, we walk like Christ. We walk like Christ. Let me ask you, are you with me? Are you with the risen Christ in this proposal? Because we could walk away, couldn't we? We could say, no, that's not good enough. I can't. It's too much. That's too much. I can't lay my life down. I can't walk through pain. But the challenge is, come. Join me. Join me. Let's suffer together as a family. Let's rejoice together as a family. That's what we do. Let's stand together. Jesus, you are the Christ. You are the Son of the living God. And God, I just say I'm in. I'm following. I'm in. Anybody else in? Jesus, we're in. So help us to follow you. Help us to image you. Help us to love and love and love, and help us to hold on with hope, even though that curtain's really, really thick. And Lord, any glimpse we can have of that glory, we'll take it all. We'll take it all. Fill our hearts with hope. Thank you that you never leave us or forsake us in the midst of it. And we will give you praise and honor and glory forever and ever in unspeakable brightness. Amen.